I think we are live. Kia ora, good evening everyone that's out there. We might just wait another 20 or 30 seconds, see if anyone else jumps on, wants to join, and then we'll kick off. I think we can probably get started. Good evening and welcome wherever you're joining us from tonight. If you're watching the recording at a later time, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Nonetheless, welcome. Thanks for joining us. I hope you're all safe, happy, healthy and well. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I'm joining you from tonight, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and I extend this respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who might be joining us. As we have on previous occasions, I'd also like us to pause and remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of their country. If you can and you're comfortable, I invite you to stand with me while I read the ode. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. I'm going to take it a step further tonight and ask that we remain standing and observe 1 minute silence to honour those 4 Victorian police officers who tragically lost their lives last night in the service of our community. So please join me in a minute of quiet reflection now. Thank you. Is the fourth and the final in a series of live video conversations that we hope have helped us all to feel like, but hopefully also that you've found them useful in terms of learning and sharing new and interesting ways to stay healthy and well, kind of these challenging times. The conversations have been made possible with the support of Caulfield RSL, the New Zealand sub-branch of Victoria RSL, and also members of the community volunteering their time to join us. One of the things I was reflecting on today and that I really want to encourage you to do as the conversation progresses tonight is to reflect on the different discussions that we've had to date. And I invite you to share using the chat function if you're comfortable to. One key thing that you've done differently as a result of our conversations, and one idea that you have about how we might continue to stay connected, ideas, suggestions, future events, other panelists that you'd love to hear from, so that we can kind of keep these conversations going over the coming weeks and maybe even months. My name is John Capon. As with the other discussions we've held today, I'll be your host. I am a psychologist and also volunteer as a welfare officer with the New Zealand sub-branch and Caulfield RSL. Tonight we're joined by Maria Kumar and Jane Laidlaw for a conversation about the importance of family, friendships, relationships, compassion and social support. Maria is the Secretary for the Victoria Maori Wardens and Jane is the Centre Manager for Headspace Elsternwick in Bentleigh. Ladies, good evening and welcome.
Good evening.
Given we can't all be in the same place together, it's hard to know just how everyone's going, and for anyone out there that's not in such a great space, as I sort of said before, please don't suffer in silence. Please reach out to a mate, maybe someone from the RSL, family member, or call one of those great helplines that are out there like Open Arms or Lifeline. And I'm going to provide those numbers in the chat function again now. Hopefully you can see those. I've already mentioned the chat function. If you do have any tips or ideas or experiences that you want to share about how you're staying socially connected as the conversation progresses, please do that, and just ensure that you select all panelists and attendees so everybody sees it. Excuse me. Same with if you have any questions for our panelists, please use the Q&A function. Please send them through. We'll do our best to make sure we answer these as the conversation progresses, or to carve out some time at the end. I think that's enough from me. So let's get into it. Jane, welcome. It's so great to have you join us. Thanks for making the time tonight. Please, can you tell us, can you tell our audience a little bit about Headspace and the great work that you and the team do to support the mental health and wellbeing of adolescents and young people?
Sure. Hi, John. Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to be part of tonight. It's a great opportunity. And yeah, especially at these very strange times that we find ourselves in. So I'll just give a little overview of Headspace. I'm not sure how many people already have an understanding, but Headspace is a national service and has kind of a national centre. It's actually based in Melbourne. It was started in Melbourne. But what it means is there's about 130 Headspaces around Australia, and they all do function quite differently, but the messaging is all the same and the client group is the same. So we basically work with young people from 12 to 25, and we mostly see people one-on-one with counsellors. So we have psychologists, social workers, OTs, people that have mental health expertise, and they actually mostly using the mental health care plan that people may have heard of, where your GP may think that you benefit from some counselling sessions. So the GP writes a mental health care plan, and that then allows the clinicians to use Medicare as part of the service. So most of the services are provided free to young people. We also at Elsternwick and Bentleigh are lucky to have some art therapy programs, and they're provided free, and also family therapy, which is a fantastic service that a lot of Headspaces are trying to provide, but our one is very good because we're connected to Alfred Health and have a lot of experienced family workers that can provide free sessions to families. And we find often when a young person, it's often the whole family or the system that's at a point of crisis or change or been through a difficult time. So that family session, sometimes families only need to have one visit, and it can really make a difference. So that's another great service that we provide. And obviously groups, and we have a lot of input from young people through what we call our YAC. So that's called the Youth Advisory Committee. And we have a lot of really motivated young people that meet together weekly or fortnightly. A lot of them are uni students or people who use our services or are currently using our services. So they are the voice of the young people to provide us with feedback and ideas.
Awesome. Jane, thanks so much for sharing so many great initiatives and I guess services in there for our young people. I just got thrown by a comment from Cameron asking if I'd shared the Zoom link on Facebook today, but yes, Cameron. Thanks so much. Good evening, Maria. Nice to finally put a face to the voice. Thanks so much for coming on tonight. Can you tell us a little bit more about the formal role that the Maori Wardens have here in Victoria and the ways that you and the team support the wellbeing of families, young people in the community?
Sure, John. Victoria Maori Wardens have been around since 2012 when the concept started. It would have taken us a very good 2 years to set ourselves up into what was it that we were looking at doing out there in the community, although it was already identified that there was a lot of problems with Polynesian young people in all areas of Melbourne, not just one particular area. I believe that there were just random people out there doing outreach and reaching out to young people out in the community. So that's what created the Victoria Maori Wardens, which was introduced into Victoria by the Queensland Maori Wardens in 2012. And that was actually initiated by a meeting by the Queensland Maori Wardens, who I guess encouraged Victoria, if you think you have a need for the Maori Wardens, go for it. We will support you around that. And like I said, it took us a couple of years to get ourselves properly established. But now we've been, 7 years, I think it is now. Yeah, about 7 years. We've been operating since 2012. But, we've got a lot of supporters out there. And Victoria Police being one of our partners out there that we work alongside. We do a lot of outreach, not only alongside Victoria Police, but on our own at shopping centres where we identify young people that are hanging out there. And with us going out and engaging with these young people, we tend to try and link them into services out there, whether it be schooling, whether it be other services, and we find a lot of young people that we do connect with do have some problems. We try not to get too involved around those problems, but for us to connect with this young cohort, meaning that we've got to build a relationship with them, a trusting relationship, because it's not that easy to engage with young people in the first place. But once they get used to seeing our presence around in the community, and it's not like we're out there to target them or anything, they turn to look at us differently and they start trusting us. So this is when they start to open up to us and say, hey, are you able to help us with whatever it is that's going on with them? And of course, that's what we do. We will try and support these young people out there. Now, besides doing outreach as well, we also do a lot of community functions out there. We do run our own, what we call, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Waitangi Day. We do run that every 2 years here in Hopper Crossing. It's always been very successful. We always get 2,000 plus families that attend our events. So that's a huge thing for us. But we've run 2 so far, and they've been very, very successful. We also run a lot of other things as well, what we call a program. We run it every 2 months called Building Relationships Day, where we connect with all the other community groups, find out what they're doing, find out if, if they are beneficial to other people that we connect with in the community, and we try to bring them all together as well. And we find that very beneficial because everyone's getting to know who's who around the community. And we all know that everybody doesn't know everyone, right? So is the reason we run these Building Relationships Day. So we're busy with that. There's a lot of meetings as well that our members will attend. We get invitations to go out. So I can go on and on, John. So I'll stop there.
Thanks, Maria. There's a couple of there's a whole range of, I guess, common themes that come through from what you both sort of said so far, and I think the stuff that's coming up for me is trust, feeling safe, relationships, and that a lot of that comes from I guess being face to face or out there with others. So I guess the next logical question for me is, how has your role and the ways in which you support people's well-being, I guess that's for both panelists, how have your roles changed during the current crisis?
Well, I can start. Give you a break, Maria. Look, our service has gone a massive transformation in a very short period of time, which, like any big change, has had some advantages and disadvantages, and some of them have been quite unexpected, and some have sort of been what you'd expect to happen. But we're very fortunate. Every headspace has a different lead agency, and our lead agency is actually the Alfred Hospital. So we're run on the back of what you could say is a big, well-resourced machine. So we were quite quickly able to we've got about 30 people that work for us, providing always face-to-face contact with clients. But within about a 2-week period, we were able to get all of those people to have access to being able to provide sessions through a telehealth platform. And we still we can see some people face to face, but interestingly, very quickly, the clients stopped coming into the building, and most were very happy to be offered the alternative of telehealth. And if the telehealth's not okay, we also just use the telephone, which again can be very useful. And I think we all know that experience, that sometimes it's actually walking along side by side with someone or in a car, that you're not actually facing each other, and sometimes that's when you open up and talk more openly, that you actually, if someone's really actively listening to you. So and so some of the expected things that have been fantastic are that young people are much more familiar with, so our client group's very familiar with their relationships being online with their friends, Snapchat, they engage online a lot. So it's actually been the clinicians that are a bit older that have said, oh, well, we've actually had to learn off our clients because they're quite familiar with this space. Some of the unexpected things have been that we quite quickly were able to, like, sometimes people, especially young people, they make an appointment with them and then they don't show because they forget or they stay in bed, or so actually being able to then just ring them and say, oh, well, would you like to have a telehealth appointment? In some cases they preferred it. Another one that I suppose was a bit unexpected and it really highlighted for us was young people really can find it quite anxious, especially the first time they come to an appointment, having to walk into a waiting room and everyone's looking at you and you interact with an adult and meet somebody new, whereas they've actually found the telehealth is much more comfortable for them and has alleviated some of that anxiety. But then we have also had some people that have said, well, I'm not comfortable with telehealth, I'll wait. So we just keep following them up and letting them know that we are available to speak online. And if we're really worried with people, they can come in to see the GP or one of the counsellors. So, but a lot of the counsellors are now working from home, and especially ones with small children or school-age kids that they have to support with the learning as well. So it's been quite a change, that's for sure. And it's the kind of thing that, as the manager of the service, if I'd tried to implement this change, it would have taken a very long time. And the other thing that for us took some time, I still think the government was amazing with the Medicare codes needed to all be changed. So clinicians weren't able to practice with telehealth until this happened. It was you had to see people face to face to be able to use Medicare. So that's been quite a fascinating thing. But when those that's come through that you can provide it through telehealth, that's really been a huge support. But yeah, look, I think the other thing is we initially didn't have so many people coming to the service. Like usually we would have about 60 people a week present, and we bring about 30 new clients into the service each week. The calls really dropped down, but as we sort of predicted after Easter, people have been in isolation a bit longer, families have kind of prepared for school holidays, but then, people are meant to be working and juggling home, and I think families then being, families that are already in you know, a little bit of chaos or there's breakdown in their relationships, to then be in isolation, and that it really puts demand on those families that are already not coping well. So I think now this last week and 2 weeks we've seen more people really presenting, and more people in higher levels of distress, I suppose, is what we're starting to see.
The higher levels of distress than what you were saying earlier to.
Yeah, so I think people are not presenting to services until they're more worried or more depressed or more anxious, or so they're kind of holding and waiting, and then when they do present, they're more in need of service. Yeah.
So, sorry, I guess just to go a step further with that, then, if people are at home with, I guess, with young people, what might be some of the warning signs or the indicators that the young person's not doing so well, right? Like if we're finding that people are going, I guess they're becoming more and more distressed or anxious or upset or whatever, emotional before they're reaching out for help, what might we start to see at home that is going to be a really powerful, I guess, indicator that things aren't quite right?
Yeah. I'm going to try the share a screen thing. See if everyone can see this. I'll just, hopefully people can see that. So this is just a really nice little simple diagram I quite like, that really helps you just think about it in different stages, because I think everyone's a little bit in heightened anxiety and worry at the moment. So, you know, it's important we're all kind of looking at things through a sort of a calm view. But, you know, I suppose we can look at it. This is just quite a helpful way to think about anybody, really. But this is what we think with young people. So it's really about someone that's coping well and functioning well with good mental health, is able to respond and cope with the normal ups and downs in life. So, you know, level 2 might be that you're having a reaction, and you know, teenagers are more dramatic in their reactions. You know, they might be a bit more up and down in their emotions, but then they recover and they're okay. The next one where you start to worry more is where someone's just showing signs of what we'd say is poor mental health. And back to your question, what you'd start seeing there is, you know, someone's change in their behaviour from before, you know, where they're not eating the same, or their sleep's changing or disrupted. Again, with teenagers, they do start to do that. I live in a house with 3 of them, and they're you know, there's sort of normal levels, and then there's it's where it's sustained for a period of time as well, where they might be more withdrawn, they're not having contact with their friends. You know, they might stop sporting activities. So it's a general kind of change in behaviour. They may be more erratic and more emotional outbreaks, and then really it's where that is for a prolonged period of 3 to 6 months that you may then actually move to what you consider as more a mental illness, and a real concern for people, where you're definitely really needing to get some help. But what we're really, with Headspace, we really promote, you know, getting help in the reaction poor mental health stage as well, where, you know, just helping young people to adjust with the normal stresses of life is really useful as well. So, you know, that early intervention is very important.
Yeah, I love this mental health continuum, because it really starts to indicate that we're all on this continuum somewhere, and it's quite natural for us to move up and down. But it's when we get into that really get into that red zone, that it gets harder and harder to get back to the good health. So I guess it being so fundamentally important that we're vigilant for the signs that, I guess, in ourselves and in other people, that people are being more reactive, or might be indicating that their mental health is compromised, and either reaching out for help ourselves, or checking in on people and making sure that they are okay.
Yeah.
And letting them know that we're concerned and that we're here to support them.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we all know and feel, that social connection um, makes you feel better, but it's actually, you know, research just over and over shows that. But of course, we also all know that when you feel flat and terrible and not good in yourself, you do withdraw, you don't reach out. So, and look, again, I think this is one of the double-edged swords of the COVID situation that we're all in. I think actually I'm hearing a lot of people say, oh, well, actually now my neighbours are checking in on me, and, people are checking in on people that they might not otherwise in their busy lives assume everyone's kind of okay, even if you're not feeling okay. But I think it's given people a bit more of a license to go in and check on each other, which is a really positive thing, I think.
100%, yeah. And look, I'm going to come back to that point later, because that's one of the things that kind of I hope is one of those really positive step changes that come out of this whole crisis, right? Like that people actually start to think and act more locally, like that they actually genuinely get to know their neighbours beyond kind of name and waving every now and then as they pass, but actually genuinely getting to know and care and demonstrate that care and concern for others. Yeah, I mean, that's what I hope comes out of it all.
Well, and the other one I've heard a little bit too is that I think because people, when they're not feeling good, can feel isolated and think that it's only them that's feeling bad. In another way, this is very collective COVID. So there's a sense that everyone may not be going so well. So in a way, that connects people as well, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. Maria, how about for you and your kind of work in the community? How's that changed? And
now the Victoria Maori Wardens are at a standstill at the moment. So our patrols are on hold. So we've let everybody know that we actually work alongside that. We will not be out there patrolling, which they all agreed. It's a bit hard, but however, we have to do it. But we are getting a lot of contacts through social media and phone calls. So, we're still trying to assist those out there who needs our help, and we will try and help them any way we can. But there was one that was really, really sad last week, where we had someone ring up from the service wanting us to visit a elderly gentleman who had a terminal illness. So we had to decline because, with the coronavirus, we just didn't want to take any risks. And we did apologise, but we did say that we were happy to have a kaumatua, which is an elder, someone in our community that could assist the family with prayers, like happy to meet through either a phone call or other, means of meeting with them. So they were happy with that. So it's not like, it was all a loss. At least we found another way for the family to get, the assistance that they needed. Otherwise, we would be there. So just things like that, we keep getting calls coming in all the time. We also had two young people. We got a referral. 2 young people had become homeless. They were Kiwi young people, 15 and 13, very, very young. So made contact with them, tried to link them back with their families because, talking to them about the risks that are out there and they shouldn't be out there. However, it wasn't an option to go home, so we had to find a service that would at least find some form of housing for them, which we did. So they were housed temporarily. So, that was something else that we were able to achieve for these young people. So although, we're not physically out there doing the work that we do, we try and, I guess, assist them through other, means of communication, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's challenging, but however, we all got to do what we've got to do. We miss what we do out there with our outreach in the community. Also, we had to actually turn down Victoria Police when they did, I think was it the Moomba? Or it could have been the white lights, and we had to say no. you know, and it was really sad because we do support Victoria Police as much as possible while we're out there. But, you know, they understand if we're not available, we're not available. So, yeah, very challenging, John.
Yeah, and I mean, I can hear kind of the passion in your voice when you talk about it, right? And it's, yeah, and it must be hard not to be able to, I guess, provide all of the support that you would like to. And you guys both provide such an important social, I guess, social service. You know, so, you know, and I can't applaud you enough. Let's talk specifically then about social inclusion and belonging. Right. So from I guess from your perspective, or from either of your perspective, why is it such an important factor in terms of our overall, I guess, our whole?
Yeah, I'm guessing the impacts of that is it relates to the 2001 legislation laws that was placed on us Kiwis living here in Australia, so not getting, I guess, the same treatment as Australians that are living in New Zealand, who has access to all social services, and also, you know, working as an advocate for another organisation called Iwi Nos. I feel that it's very, very important. We should be treated the same here, but that's not actually the fact. So what these legislation laws are doing is it causes a lot of homelessness with our people that can't access housing services here in Australia unless, although I am, because I work alongside a housing service who do, I mean, they shouldn't, but who do work alongside our New Zealand families who have children. So I'm fully aware they will not allow children to go out on the street. So they tend to try and help these families, and they obviously, you know, make contacts through our service to see how we can also help those families. So we have what we call host families. So the concept of the host families are they're families that are living in their own homes, and they'll open their homes up to any families that are homeless until such time we place them into accommodation of their own. However, it's not that easy for them to find private rental quite easily. The reason around that is because a large percentage of New Zealanders that are working here in Australia are all casual workers. So obviously the rental market don't want to take risk in renting their homes out to families that are only on casual work. And I can understand that because I am aware that a lot of New Zealanders might only have work for a short period of time, and then they're out of work over a period of time. And that's common. So this is where we come in and help them with food. We linked in with an organisation that run their own food pantry in Hoppers Crossing and Point Cook. They do provide for all New Zealand families that are doing it tough here in Victoria. So and there's a big need in the New Zealand community. So other issues that we may have as well, a lot of New Zealanders are not fully aware of their immigration status in the country. And because of that, they tend to be referred to us and ask them where they fit in, or whether they can apply for citizenship, and what is it that they need in order to apply for citizenship here in Australia. But everyone is different. So we've got to look at, when they've come over, how long they've been here. So there's a lot of different factors, and it is very confusing is the reason why a lot of Kiwis have now taken up training or education around becoming I forget what you call them. But it's all to do, helping people with their immigration when they apply for citizenship here in Australia, because I can tell you right now, it ain't easy. I mean, I'm in the process myself that have applied for my Australian citizenship, but it isn't easy. It's really challenging, especially for me, who's been here since the 70s and having to contact New Zealand. I haven't been there, but I still exist because I still hold a New Zealand passport. So yay, I was able to achieve what I wanted in order to try and get my Australian citizenship. So it's looking good. I'm not far off from that, but I can imagine all the other families who'll be trying to apply for that, because it's not going to be easy for them. So therefore, we will be there to help them.
Yeah, good. And good luck with your citizenship application. I hope that comes.
Thank you.
Jane, interpersonal relationships, friends and family, I guess, two of the biggest ones, right? They're clearly an important part of, I guess, having a sense of belonging. From your perspective, is there a magic number in terms of the relationships or connections that we need to have in order to be socially well?
Well, I think it's always would be nice if there's a good black and white answer, but no, there's no black and white answer to this one. But look, I think most importantly, everybody needs to have some meaningful relationships in their life, and I think everyone's different for their need for socialising as well. I think people are aware of those. They talk about the circles of relationship, and there's that having your intimate and your closest family and friends are obviously in your most intimate circle. But as we also know, if there's breakdown in those circles, well, then it's the most distressing and the most difficult relationships to have breakdown. So, there's those, but I think it's also important that people do have relationships with people in those next circles. And I think especially if the closest relationships are not healthy or they are causing distress, it's very important to have relationships in that next band of acquaintances, but also just to know where you can find relationships. And actually last year I did a positive psychology course, but one of the things I really picked up about it was they talked about the micro moments of connection. And they actually have now found that it's like how we now know that if you actually smile, it releases chemicals that actually make you feel better. And what they've also found now is that that connection you can feel with somebody down in the shops when they serve you and you stop and you really connect with that person and ask how they are, and they you really listen to them and they listen to you. Those micro moments of connection lead to good health in the individual through that feedback loop of feeling okay and valid in the world. So I think that's a really important. That was a great takeout for me, because it was like, no matter how you're feeling, you can actually, it's the quality of the relationships that you actually take out into the world, and it's something that you need to learn and practice. But I often play a game with my son as we're walking somewhere, and it's like, who can catch how many smiles, and you get 2 points if a stranger actually says hello to you that you're going past. So you get 1 point for a smile from a stranger and 2 points for hello. So because he laughs because I say hi to everybody, and half the people don't even say hello back. And he's like, oh mum, they didn't say hello. So so we count the points now. So look, I think who we are is reflected back by the groups we belong to, and that is hugely important. And on the cultural side, it's being able to be a part of group rituals and activities, and those things really create meaning for people. So when they're not in your tribe or your family, then you need to find them in other places as well, and that's a really important thing for people.
Yeah, that's great. I guess so. So for me, then there's no magic number, but it sounds
No,
like
no magic number.
it's the it's having meaningful connections and meaningful relationships. So I guess it's about the quality of those relationships rather than the quantity. There's something you were talking about, the whole sort of the micro connections and really connecting with people when you, I guess, when you interact with them. I'm a massive advocate of mindfulness, kind of play in that space. I wrote a thesis on mindfulness and my experience with mindfulness. And interpersonal mindfulness, I think, is such a great way to ground yourself in the present. You can't meaningfully connect with someone if you're not actually there and present and taking a genuine interest, right? Like, it's impossible for you to be somewhere else. So even if those are just some of the opportunities that we take to be really truly present and in the moment, that pays dividends in terms of our well-being as well. So
Absolutely.
I love that. I guess for both of you, I was listening to the ABC the other day, and someone sent in an SMS saying that the pandemic had made her feel like she had to withdraw from all social contact. And she was feeling really isolated and lonely as a result. And my immediate reaction was, my heart went out to her. I was like, that's horrible. But then the more that I thought about it, the more I actually think that's a really natural and normal reaction to kind of the situation that we find ourselves in. And I guess I'm wondering if either of you have any tips or ideas for people who might be feeling the same.
Look, when it comes to something like that, and even if it's involving the elderly, we do have what we got, like I said, our Kumar council. We rely on them quite a lot because, you know, they are a council of elders who we feel relate to our elderly more than anyone else in our community. So we do rely on them. I mean, like I said, you know, they're available. They're a phone call away. You know, should it be somebody that's elderly and isolating themselves from everybody else. I mean, you know, our Kaumatua Council, they do wonderful work out there. They're always behind the scenes. They are never on the front line like we are. So, and we do rely on getting, you know, some advice from them as well as to some of the situations that we might be with. And what you were just stating there, John, that's one example. I would go to our co-martyrs and say, hey, we've got someone isolated. You know, what advice can you give us to see how we can help? So that's what I would do in this instance.
Yeah, great. And how about for you, Jane?
Well, one of the things that Headspace National have been fantastic in really kind of guiding us in how to think through all these things and work with people. And one of the things they very quickly got onto was the whole social distancing, but they actually said, well, please don't refer to it as social distancing, call it personal distancing, because we want to stay socially connected. So they kind of really used that as a point to think, okay, so I've got to personally isolate or keep my distance, but socially I really need to stay connected. And it was actually a really good message. It was about 100 like from all around the country who were on the webcast looking at it all. It's like, oh yeah, that was a really important message to take away. And again, I think back to I do love observing people and being out on the street at the moment. I mean, I'm still fortunate going into the workplace. But, you know, you see, especially in those early days, people walking, you know, wide around each other and quite drawn looks on their face. And I think, yeah, that I've got to keep my distance. People got a very worried, withdrawn feeling. It did give you that natural kind of feeling of needing to withdraw. So I think it is really about encouraging and really, again, if you're observing that in people you know, to really reach out and connect. And I mean, we all know that, you know, it's always your oldest friends and mates can get a laugh out of you, or so it is really that, sharing smiles, sharing connection, reaching out to people whenever you get an opportunity to reconnect people in those things.
I like it. Yeah, one of the first changes that I made was taking it from social distancing to physical distancing.
Yeah.
For me, social distancing made me kind of feel like I had to be more than just at arm's reach from people. That it's actually about physical distance, not social distance.
Well, and actually, it was funny things too. Like you could actually still talk to people. You could stand 2 meters and talk. I mean, my friends were quite relieved. I tend to yell at them a bit anyway, but they were like, you could. I was like, oh, actually, I can still talk to people at 2 meters. So it's actually there's a lot of ways we could still stay connected. So.
Speaking of kind of innovative ways of staying connected, let's focus a little bit more on the positive. Look, I don't advocate for drinking by any stretch of the imagination, but one of the Victorian brewers has started a virtual bar on a Friday afternoon, and they have a prominent Australian comedian, and they've got an Australian sportsman, and they're inviting people to register and kind of share their stories and effectively. Anyway, look, I can't meet my mates at the pub right now, but we've all signed up for this, and we're sort of seeing it as an opportunity to share a few stories and just unwind. So what are some of the other creative and innovative solutions that I guess that you're seeing come up from organisations, teenagers, young people, to stay in touch and connected to one another?
Yeah, well, it is amazing, all the the apps and things. So obviously, House Party is quite a big one. I haven't been on that yet, but as you say, same thing. I've got friends that I've got a competition with one group of my friends to make the best dance video clip in isolation and include your family. And I actually heard of another one where some people did like a bit the same lines as you're talking, a mini pub crawl through their house. So they'd meet up with their friends and they'd all be in the kitchen, and then they'd all be in the lounge room, and so they just move around the house. And but look, our young people at Headspace, interestingly, the YAC Youth Advisory Committee, their creativity's gone through the roof with being online. So as I said earlier, some of them are university students and some of them are people that attend the service, but they actually found coming into the meetings to find a time that worked for everyone was quite difficult. And now they're all meeting on a Zoom meeting and everyone's attending, and they've now got a very clear, it's like the driver to have to come up with creative solutions. So it's worth people having a look on Facebook. They keep posting they've now got different topics to discuss each time of how to stay healthy and stay engaged. And one of them was interviewing a young guy today. One of the young girls was interviewing the young guy, talking about what he does and to keep engaged and calm. And he said how just about his music and what music he listens to and different strategies he uses. So they've got really creative and become more organised as well. So that's been quite a good example.
Sure. Yeah, great. How about for you, Maria?
I'm actually feeling for the school-age children at the moment, although it is great to hear that some of them have returned to school. Okay, I've checked in with even my own grandchildren as to what they're doing. Now, their parents have been really great around their way of teaching. Like it's making the bed or getting involved in cooking, and that's fine. I mean, it's not what children usually do, but I think that's great that they're teaching them that, because number one, they're not going to be bored. I mean, you're having your kids home day after day, and just hearing this is what they're doing, they're actually I mean, I would look at it as a chore, but it's not a chore. It's something that they don't normally do anyway. But I find that the grandchildren are really enjoying it. And I've heard from other friends as well, and what they're doing, they're actually home teaching their children. And we're sharing ideas around what they're doing in teaching them and the books that they're using. And there is a majority of New Zealand mums who are actually home educators anyway.
Mm.
And teaching kids, while they're looking after them in the home is, teaching is part of the work that they do anyway. So they already have that experience. So we look to them like, oh, can you give us some tips on how, what we can do with our grandchildren to help the parents out as well. And I do know that they're not really supposed to be, in the other homes, but if it's anything to do with teaching, we're there, because that's the only reason they'd be allowed to be at the other family's home. We'd be lucky. I think we saw our grandchildren 2 weeks ago, and that was only hi and bye, knowing that, they're not really supposed to be there. I mean, but yeah, just seeing the kids getting back into school, I think is very, very important. I'm sure the teachers are really frustrated about not only their future and what's happening, with them, but I'm sure they're missing the fact that they, want to be around the kids because that's what they do in their everyday lives with the work that they do. So I would say that's one example.
Yeah, great. Oh, thank you. I'm just kind of looking at the Kitty's question. Thanks so much for sending that through. Kitty's basically saying you both do amazing work with our youth and young adults, and she's sort of posted a question about whether or not you've seen an increase in our younger teens and adults with anxiety, distress as a result of, social physical distancing, and any tips you can provide to parents, younger people, to help cope with, those challenging emotions.
I'm happy to answer that. I might do a screen share again. So yes, I would say we definitely are starting to see, I would say it's where people are already in distressing situations, or under pressure, or already have some anxiety, that this is definitely leading to further isolation with that. I'll just quickly show you this one because this is Headspace National really have done an amazing job with their resources at the moment. So this is just the website. You can see up in the top corner here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but headspace.org.au, and I'll put these links up. But two of the things they have at the moment that are really useful is they have a general sheet that you get through to very quickly just on the top of the website, how to cope with stress related to COVID. So they really talk about what kind of stress people are experiencing. So increased fear and anxiety, anger, frustration, confusion, sadness, and then denial. And I suppose denial can work in a way where people don't want to think about these things, and then it does build up and come out in ways that you're not expecting. And then here they just look at some great tips to maintain a healthy headspace during this time. And some of these we've covered already, but it's really looking at being mindful of being too exposed to the information. So really making sure you shut off from some of the information after a period of time, because it's everywhere in the media, as you know. And I think you can feel a little bit this week with it not kind of increasing in Australia. People are relaxing a little bit about their own personal safety in relation to COVID, but obviously we've still got a way to go with that. Do things that make you feel safe and connected, and be with those that are helpful to your wellbeing. So it is really about being with people around you that you know, and engaging in activities that bring you a sense of feeling grounded. And they do talk about trying to reduce alcohol and drugs if people are using those to kind of cover up difficult feelings. And obviously talking to trusted adults. So this really good helpful sheet, it's only 2 pages, and on the back it has a list of all the useful contacts and services for young people to contact. So Kids Helpline, Reach Out, Sane Australia, and obviously Headspace. And Headspace National also have a number you can ring at any time for support, which is great. And I'll just quickly show you another resource because I really love this one. So this one is called Tips for a Healthy Headspace. I've got to get my bar out of the way. So this one is, it actually gives you a little plan as well. So at the front, it just looks like a checklist and a kit. And it gives you, again, Lifeline and Kids Helpline. And then it just helps people make a little action plan to stay positive and identify. So they're saying just identify one thing a day that is a positive activity for you, and then just achieve that, make it achievable. But the 7 tips for a healthy headspace I really like, and they have a lot of more detail on all of these. So they're saying get into life, learn skills for tough times. So, put a few tools in your kit bag for when things do get tough. Create connections. So obviously the whole relationship and the importance of that. Eating well, and then staying active and getting enough sleep. And then obviously the drug and alcohol. So they've just brought it down to 7 simple points, and they give you a really nice plan to work with people as well. So again, this is targeted to young people, but useful for all of us really. So it's just about having a think about your well-being and getting a little bit of structure around it, which particularly at these times is really important. So yeah, they're just some of the great resources we've got that we can direct you to for Headspace.
Yeah, I love it. Such great resources. Thanks for sharing. Maria, anything from your perspective, or anything sort of looking at time and thinking it's probably getting towards wrapping things up? Any final thoughts or?
I'd like to say now, young people that, especially Pacific Island and Maori young people that we work with, often enough, they, how do I put it? They feel like they don't have anything wrong with them in terms of mental health. So, we tend to try and sit with them and say, look, how about if we maybe just get someone to have a look at you and let them be the judge of what they think's going on in your life, because there's certainly something going on, and, we identify the signs. Headspace in Werribee has been awesome around supporting our young people. Now, for some reason, we can't get our young people to Headspace at all. I think embarrassment is one of the main factors why they don't want to go. But if we walk them there, they're fine. So we do find a lot of our young people won't attend many places, and mental health services is one of those. So I thought I'd just mention that. I'm not sure. Now, Jane, what are your thoughts around that? Or what do you have any ideas that you can give me to help support our young people that we feel that are not approaching any mental health services?
Yes, look, it's one of the hardest things when you're working with people that, they're in such a low spot to access the services or to acknowledge where they're at can be very difficult. So, fantastic that you can even get them to walk in, and it's great you've got a service that then can see them when you walk in, because that's another huge challenge. But look, I think sometimes as workers you feel like you've got to do something, and sometimes it is just sitting with the people, and it can be hard to do, but you can, if you can just sit it out with people sometimes, and you'll always find there's something in their life that, like, obviously they go into a defensive position of I'm fine and I don't need help, and it can be a really defensive position to show that they're okay and to keep themselves together, really. They're doing the best they can in that moment, but the longer you talk to people, you'll find something that's troubling them, that if that's the thing that you focus on to get them to get the help with, like they'll finally say, well, I'm stressed about the breakdown of my relationship, or it might be the not having the job, or it might be something else that is the lead into because none of us really want to say, oh yeah, well, I've got mental health problems and people will feel a failure in a way. So it's how you can find that, it's a very delicate, difficult thing to get somebody to accept help when they're in a difficult place. So, yeah.
Thank you, Jane.
Sounds like we've still got some work to do with our young people around stigma and breaking down that, I guess, those barriers to help seeking.
I do think Headspace has come a fairly long way with that, though, because I've worked in mental health for nearly 30 years now, and exactly what Marie's talking about. I mean, and the mental health services didn't used to offer people much, really. You only got there at the end of the road. So, but I think Headspace really has opened those front doors, but obviously it won't reach everybody, but it's young people really quite like, being associated with it. They don't just see it as a negative. So that is a big step forward. But yeah, there's always further to go on these things.
Yeah, and if I kind of reflect on my experiences as a teenager, I would have loved to have had the level of education and access to the support services that are available today. So, I guess last one, I kind of talked a little bit before from my perspective about hoping to see people thinking and acting more locally, getting to know their neighbours and things like that. From your perspective, what's one positive change or innovation, step change that you hope we'll see from a social perspective come out of the current, I guess, crisis? And what do you think our audience or we can collectively do to make this a reality?
Well, probably for, I think positive that hopefully we can all stay with is, I think, the older people, we've all caught up now with younger people's use of technology and interface on technology. So I would like a lot more human contact in my life, but I think it's also a great thing that we've joined with young people and got a lot more comfortable with technology and remote access. And I know a lot of services that are in remote areas have already been using it, but for us, I think it's great that, you can more quickly just check in with someone face to face. It's funny now, all my friends that I used to speak on the phone now FaceTime me. It's like, oh, I had to talk on the phone, now you want to see me. So in a way, it's a good thing. I think it does give you another level of connection, at least seeing face to face. And I think the younger people we're working with, they're definitely giving that feedback. Oh, you're finally all catching up, with where they're at. So.
Yeah, look, and it certainly strikes me from the conversation tonight that that our young people are leading the way in terms of using kind of technology to stay connected, and that there's lots that we can learn from them and hopefully catch up with them. Thanks so much, Jane. How about from you, Maria? What's one?
Yeah, I agree with Jane. I think it's very, very important to stay connected with everyone that that we love, and also those that we work alongside. It's important to keep our connections. Just ring up, hey, how you going? What are you up to? I think that's very, very important because we're in isolation, but the communication is still out there, and I think it's important to let everybody know that you're okay. I think that's quite important. And I'd love, and I get calls, how you doing? I thought, wow, to me that is really humbling that there's still people out there that cares and they're checking up on us, and they're not relatives, they're friends, and even people that I haven't heard from for months and years, like all of a sudden, hey, how you going? And I thought, wow. So, I think we all should be doing that because it means something. And I'm saying that for myself. So, yes.
Yeah, it's a really great point. Thanks so much for sharing. I'm just sort of taking a look back through kind of some of the comments in the chat that has come through around kind of the feedback and the gratitude from people sort of tonight, and some of the ideas around how we might connect Headspace and the Maori Wardens. I'm just looking at Kitty comment about the Maori culture and having to be strong, and that that's a sign of weakness, to not be okay. Maria, is there anything that you that you sort of, yes, reaction or comment sort of to that point?
Well, I think like I'm very familiar with Headspace and what they provide, and we need them. We're always going to need them in the work that we do, not only for our young people, but just anyone in general. I've used Headspace quite a lot, and it is mainly to do with our young people, whether taking them to their appointments or whether, as I stated earlier, in one scenario. So it's very, very important. And I mean, we've already formed a partnership with Bentleigh. It doesn't mean to say we can't with Headspace. I mean, Headspace is all over Melbourne. Like I said, I have a lot to do with the Werribee Headspace. And yeah, there's no reason why we can't do more with them, because they're a service provider for us. And that I can say, I don't know what, we can do for them. But then again, we do get a lot of referrals from other agencies around how we can support our young people, and mentoring is one of the major ones that we've been at, and we're open to mentoring our young people, because that's what we do.
Yeah. I was kind of, and look, I'm going to talk from my own personal perspective. Shopbro and Rob's story, for me, is just such a powerful example of how much strength and vulnerability it actually takes to put your hand up and say that you're not okay. Do you know what I mean? Like the fact that, like, what he shared, like, so much strength to be able to share that story, but doesn't come across as a sign of weakness to me. It actually kind of says, shit, this guy's actually, like, how much mana does he have for me? Do you know what I mean? Like, respect do I have for him as a result of him being prepared to share that and sort of saying, like, this is my story and don't be scared to ask for help.
Yeah. And I quite enjoyed coming to see Rob and forget the other young man's name. That was powerful. I mean, it was. I think it was very powerful for a lot of people that was there that evening. Pretty hard to explain how, but that's his way of expressing himself. No, it was powerful. You are right. I don't know any other words to describe it.
But I mean, I think the what it also did, though, was that it created this space where there was this awesome conversation about everybody else's taniwha, and like the challenges that they have from a mental health perspective, and like it was actually quite moving that so many people were prepared to share, and even, hey, look, this is my experience, this is my diagnosis, I haven't told anybody before. Do you know what I mean? Like, but they actually felt safe enough in that space to share that. So I don't know, I thought it was amazing.
It was. I have to agree.
And I don't know how I guess we can kind of continue to grow and foster that that culture, but I hope we can find the ways to do that. I guess just kind of ideas about, or bringing the kind of the session to a close tonight. A couple of key points that came out for me was the importance of meaningful relationships and social support for our well-being, and the need to nurture and to foster those, particularly at the current point in time. And part of that connection being making sure that we're vigilant for the signs that others might not be coping so well. And Jane sort of spoke about those changes in people's normal behaviour, and I guess being curious about reaching out to them and checking in on them and how they're going, and encouraging them to seek help. Look, that pretty much wraps up the discussion this evening. Ladies, I can't say enough to thank you and express my gratitude. But thank you so much for giving your time and wisdom so freely to support me and our members. I also just want to acknowledge the support of Caulfield RSL, and in particular President Colin Bradley, General Manager Cameron Griffiths, and Shauna and the back office team. Also to my thanks to the sub-branch committee members, and in particular our President James Hallhepper-Smith and Secretary Kitty Penny for all of your assistance setting these up. Thanks also to anyone and everyone that tuned in at home and joining the conversation. I hope you found it really enlightening and that you're able to take something away. Ladies, anything sort of final you want to share with the group before we sign off?
Just want to say good evening to Colin and Kitty and James and everybody else from the RSL. Good evening.
Thanks, Maria. Jane, anything final?
Well, yeah, just thank you for allowing me to be part of this, and I can probably yell over the fence to Colin if you like, Maria, because he's my neighbour. So
you go.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's been great to be a part, and I really like having the connection. Our Headspace office is literally, 1 minute's walk from the RSL, so that's also a great opportunity for us to make a real connection. And with Anzac Day coming up, I'd also just like to say I think of my great grandfather who was on the front line and gave his life there. So thinking of everybody at this time, and just that everyone takes care and keep reaching out when you've got the time and energy, and when you're not feeling at your best, make sure you also reach out to those that you can trust. So yeah.
Perfect. Couldn't have said it better. Ladies, thanks so much for your time. Everyone be calm, be kind, stay home. We'll see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jay.
Bye.